Round 10 of the URC saw some big performances. My name's Mark. Let's talk rugby. This weekend we saw teams who haven't been doing brilliantly this season, producing performances in a number of games. As usual, we're going to go through the games, talk a little bit about, how the scores went through the game, and then have a look at the table and see how, this weekend has really affected the standings. So we're going to start with the Friday night games, and we start with Ospreys 24, Lions 24. So that rare thing in rugby, a draw in this game. And, the first half, we have the Lions taking their lead, Frankie Horn in with a try. Then we have 3 tries from the Ospreys. We have James Ratty, that one gets converted. Then Yesen Hopkins and Morgan Morse goes in for the 3rd try just before the break. And you're thinking, Ospreys are going to have a decent lead going in at half time. But then Frankie Horn, 4 minutes into the red in that first half, gets over for his 2nd try and the Lions' 2nd try as well. That's converted. And now Ospreys have a 19 points to 12 lead, so 7-point lead at half time. Into the second half then, and we see a bit of resurgence from the Lions. We have a try from PJ Botha that leaves them 2 points behind, and then Kewan Horn gets over for their bonus point try. That's converted. Now the Lions have a 5-point lead, but it doesn't last that long. We have then Daniel Kasende in for the Ospreys bonus point try. Conversion is missed, and we end up with neither team being able to produce a winning score. But also during the game we had 4 yellow cards. We had Dowie Lake in the first half for Ospreys, and we had Kutsia for the Lions, both going to the bin. Then second half, then 1 from each again. Rhys Davies and Etienne Oosterhuizen for the Lions, and that one, the Oosterhuizen one, was after Ospreys had equalised, but they couldn't do anything during that yellow card period. But Ospreys 24, Lions 24. Neither team going to be delighted with the result, I would imagine, at least. But Lions, they hadn't picked up. I don't think they picked up pretty much anything up in Europe this year. Certainly no draws or wins for them up until now. And then Ospreys, it keeps them kind of in the hunt, up around there near the playoff places for now. Obviously going to have to produce better going forward. So Ospreys 24, Lions 24 in that one. Then 2 more games on the Friday. The next one is Edinburgh 17 and then Vodacom Bulls 19. And we have some early scores in this one. Duhan van der Merwe in for a try after 6 minutes. Then Bulls replied through Marcel Kutsia. And about 5 minutes later, Pierre Schoeman over for Edinburgh. And then 5 minutes to go to half time, Darcy Ray goes in for their 3rd try, and Ross Thompson converts that one. So at the break, the Edinburgh leading 17 points to 5. It seems like a decent lead, and it's one of those situations where Edinburgh would be kind of thinking about in that second half. Let's get the bonus point try, and then build a score to go on and make sure that we win the game. But they don't score a point in the second half. Instead, we have 2 converted tries from the Bulls, 1 from Johan Grobler, and then Marco van Staden in with 10 minutes to go. Andre Pollard converting both of those, and his accuracy off the tee in that second half, enough to make the difference between the teams. Edinburgh 17, Vodacom Bulls 19. The Bulls, have had a very bad kind of run of it since they started the season fairly well, dipped, and now they seem to be coming back. And this is another step for them, really, coming back into those playoff places. Edinburgh still struggling with consistency, and we just see it again. They had doing really well in the first half, but they can't keep it going for 80 minutes and end up losing a game that they looked easily favourites to win at half time. Edinburgh 17, Vodacom Bulls 19. The third and final Friday night game then, Munster 22, Dragons 20. So Dragons get a brilliant start to this game. You have early penalty from Angus O'Brien. Then Brodie Coughlin in for a try, converted by O'Brien. Then Harry Bedell goes to the bin, but they see out that period. And then once he's back on the field, they notch up another penalty through Angus O'Brien. So they've got themselves a decent lead, 13 points to nil, coming up to half time. But then Brian Gleeson goes over for Munster just before the break, converted, and now it's 13-7 at the break. Into the second half then, and Di Richards goes over for the Dragons, and that's converted. So now they're leading 20 points to 7. But then the last kind of 20 odd minutes, Munster start coming back. So Gavin Coombs, massive impact off the bench. I thought Sean Adogbu was brilliant there as well. We've got a full review of this on the channel as well if you want to go check it out. But Coombs, if you need to get over from close to the line, he's the guy giving the ball, and he does it twice for Munster to bring them back within a point. And then Tony Butler, 5 minutes ago, lands a penalty, and that was enough for Munster to just about scrape the win. Munster 22, Dragons 20. But for me, Munster back to winning ways, important for them. Dragons keeping that thing of, good performances going. They've got themselves a losing bonus point. It's not the win that maybe they could have had, but still, that fight that they're showing is so much better than the way that they started the season. Munster 22, Dragons 20 there. Okay, into Saturday then. And we have the first game was Scarlets 27, Ulster 22. Again, full review of this one on the channel if you want to check it out. So this game kind of swung back between the one way and the other between the teams, and we have Blair Murray in for a try on 10 minutes, and that adds to a penalty from Costello early on as well. So 13-0 start for Scarlets, doing really well. Then Tom Stewart gets over for Ulster, having come off the back of a maul. Conversions missed, but Ulster are on the board. Then Bryn Ward gets himself over, converted by Nathan Doak, and Ulster, beginning to come back into the game at that point. But it's short-lived because Josh MacLeod, from very close range, managed to dot the ball down, and then Scarlets seem to be taking control again. Sam Costello, who had a brilliant game for Scarlets, converts that. And at the break, it's looking like Scarlets, doing pretty well, in control. So then we go into the second half. We're not seeing much in terms of scores from either team in the 20 odd minutes after half time. Then we kind of have a flurry of activity. First, Tame Plumtree goes to the bin for the Scarlets. Then Scott Wilson gets over for Ulster's third try, and that's converted. So now Ulster have edge ahead 22-20 as no, it wasn't 22-20. It was because it was 22-17, I think, at that point. Yeah. So Ulster in the lead there. And then a few minutes later, Costello lands another penalty to make it 22-20, and Scarlets within touching distance at that point. But Ulster, think that they've kind of seen things out where, Scarlets go on a break up the middle. Ulster manage just about to turn the ball over, and I think it's all done. But then we come back for a check for an HIA, head on head, and it is Werner Koch. He goes to the bin. Scarlets then have a penalty. They do so well, from the penalty up the field. They go to the maul. Ulster almost stop them all. Then they spread it wide, and then there's a brilliant pass from Costello to Ellis Mee. He ghosts between two Ulster players, flailing to try and tackle him. He's just got too much pace. Over he goes for the winning try, and then Costello converts that as well to put the cherry on top. Brilliant performance from Scarlets. They were sitting bottom of the table coming into this round, and to produce that, Ulster, in fairness, didn't really fire that much in the backs today, but you got to give credit to Scarlets for that. Scarlets 27, Ulster 22, and again, full review on the channel if you want to check it out. Okay. Next, then we have Connacht 23, Leinster 34. So Connacht, big party over there, opening of the clan stand, which it added an extra 6,500 to Connacht's capacity there, which is brilliant to see. Connacht developing all the time, and it really is heartening to see basically the poor man of Irish rugby developing like that, and it's going to give them a chance at future success. Obviously, at the moment with the team, they're not quite there, but they've gotten in Stuart Lancaster, and they're definitely making strides. And I wish that we could say the same for Welsh rugby. I wish that Welsh rugby not necessarily copy what they're doing in Ireland, but just have the same kind of thing of let's plan for the long term, because I talked about it in the full review, which is on the channel of this one as well, that Connacht were in the position that we believe Ospreys are in at the minute, where they were on the chopping block to be eliminated because basically they weren't producing enough benefit towards the Irish rugby system, and there were people were arguing that they should be abolished, and that the funds that were available, the limited funds that were available, should just be split between 3 provinces instead of 4. Thankfully, they didn't go ahead with that. Connacht stayed. They then end up, winning the league, and now, yes, they're not like the best of the Irish provinces, but they're still producing players for the national team, and you see that they're putting in the effort there. They're the heart of their community over in Galway, and it feels like they really are building something special. And when I say something special, I don't mean that they're gonna go and be like the way Leinster have been previously, where they're maybe dominant in the league and winning European trophies every couple of years or wherever, the way Leinster used to be. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just having a rugby club there that the fans can feel part of and can be proud of. And again, just having that thing of being able to be competitive at times, not necessarily always the best team ever, but always looking to strive to improve. And that's what we hope to see from Connacht, really. But this game, Connacht 23, Leinster 34. So Connacht, produced a really good performance in this. And I thought, their scrum was doing really well early on. And, it was kind of nip and tuck between the teams. We had Fintan Gunn going over for Leinster early on. Then Dylan Tillery-Martin replies for Connacht. Then we have penalties exchanged between Sam Gilbert and Harry Byrne as we make our way to half time. Then in the second half, then the Leinster bench start to kind of have an impact for them. And I also felt that, Leinster, again, kind of incremental improvements. We still haven't seen a big improvement in Leinster, but for me, the defence was better. The scramble that, was so good a few years ago seemed to be coming back. It's still not at that level, but it was certainly very good in this game. We're seeing them as well having a bit more of a cutting edge from first and second phase. Multi-phase attack, still an issue for them, and that's obviously work on. But, we see RG Snyman going over for a try after Harry West went in for Connacht, and I thought Harry West was very good, and he come off for, I think, pretty sure it's Bundy Aki, and for me, I don't know whether he was injured or wherever, but there was certainly an argument to keep him on. But at that stage, again, it's close between the teams, and then coming down the last 20 minutes, Charlie Tector, kind of from pretty much nothing really. There was Leinster were kind of just shoveling the ball across in front of the Connacht 22. Tector, though, produces a step in between two defenders, shrugs off the tackles, and then over he goes to score. And I'll say it again, and I'll stick by it. I think, look at all the centres in Leinster. You've got Ringrose, Henshaw, and Ioane, and then you have Charlie Tector. For me, Charlie Tector has been the form centre, the best performing centre for Leinster so far this season. Then 10 minutes to go, Kieran Frawley, he signed for Connacht for next season. He goes over for the bonus point try for Leinster, and that was enough to put the seal on it. We did have, just before that, a penalty from Sam Gilbert as Connacht were looking to get back within, that one score to basically potentially have a platform to launch off to go for the win. Didn't happen for Connacht, but for me, it was a decent performance from them. And, I always say about the fact that Lancaster's coming there, it's a long-term project for them. It's not going to be solved this season. We've seen, Murphy for Ulster haven't, taken more than a season to implement what he wants to do, and Ulster are still a developing team. So Connacht are going to take time as well. And I do believe that eventually they're going to get better than they are. Maybe not forever. I don't think any team is going to be, always on the upwards trend, but it feels like they're beginning to move in the right way, in the right direction, but there's a while for that. Leinster, then, the form still isn't quite there in terms of top form, but there's no guarantees in rugby, and you can't just say just because they were in great form the last few seasons that's that ceiling is still at the same point for them. They may not be able to reach that or reach it on a consistent basis this season. We're still kind of waiting to see, as they kind of, it's weird, we're in the second half of the season and it feels like Leinster are still kind of feeling their way into their systems, but Connacht 23, Leinster 34, the final result there. Okay, on to the next one then. And for me, the big performance of the weekend of big performances, and that's why I'm wearing my Sharks jersey as well. DHL Stormers 19, Hollywoodbets Sharks 30. And, again, South African derby, Sharks get up for it. But you wonder then, why can't they do it more often in the URC? Because you feel like that they absolutely could be, a real force in this league. But starting, off, we have Jason Jenkins in for the Sharks after 5 minutes. A couple minutes later, Willemse goes over for the Stormers. Then Jaco Williams in for the Sharks for their second try. Then Jordan Hendrickse adds on a penalty for them as well. Damien Willemse in for his second try for the Stormers. And at that stage, it does feel like it's kind of close between the teams. But then we go in, into the second half. We have Morat goes to the bin kind of early-ish in half. Pepsi Buthelezi over for a try at the same time for the Sharks. And then we have Henderson pegs on another penalty for the Sharks. It's just beginning to pull away now. And we have Sandy then goes to the bin with 10 minutes to go. Andre Esterhazen in for the Sharks bonus point try. At this point then it feels like, the game is gone for the Stormers, and 2 minutes to go then the Stormers get in. They get awarded the penalty try, but they get in terms of like it didn't just come out of nothing, right? Get the penalty try. Vincent Chituka goes to the bin for the Sharks, but already the game is done and dusted, and it just kind of put a bit of a gloss on the score for the Stormers. So their first defeat in the URC this season, and I talked about it while we were during the Champions Cup reviews that the Stormers, they sent that weakened team up to Harlequins and they lost that game. They got absolutely hammered in the game, and obviously the players that played in that game are not the same players that played in this game. But with a squad like that and with a run like that, where it's an unbeaten run, and whether that's an unbeaten, like they were unbeaten for the season until then, and they were still unbeaten in the URC until this game. I said that kind of thing, once you kind of break the seal on something like that once, it very often it's not long until whatever, if you lose in Europe first, then it's not too long after that you lose then in the league. And that's what happened to the Stormers here. And it's just kind of something that, it's almost like an infection, right? That gets into the squad, and suddenly that air of invincibility, even though it's not the same players, just kind of disappears. And the Sharks were able to kind of expose that in this game. The Stormers, though, they've had a fantastic season so far. They're absolutely going to bounce back from this. But at the moment, this is a bit of a low for them. DHL Stormers 19, Hollywoodbets Sharks 30. Okay, on to the next game then. And it is another one that we reviewed on the channel. So Zebre Parma 21, Glasgow Warriors 26. So Zebre in defeat, producing, for me, one of the performances of the weekend. They ran that Glasgow team really close, and they almost got over the top of them as well in the end. And it's weird that on the back of that performance, Zebre then slipped down to the bottom of the league as well. We'll talk a bit more about that when we look at the table. But Glasgow starting off really well, get a penalty try. Then Gregor Hiddleston, who for some reason is not included in the Scotland squad for the Six Nations, somebody's going to get injured, and he's probably going to get in there, and he's going to produce possibly man of the match performance, because it seems to be the way things go in rugby, right? Players get overlooked, and then they kind of turn up and prove the doubters, like the coaches and stuff, wrong. So can definitely see that happening with him. But yeah, he's got a couple of tries. We also have his two tries kind of sandwich a Carrera try for Zebre. And also we had Odiase going to the bin for Zebre during that first half as well. So at the break, Glasgow pretty much in control of the game. Then second half, then we have Bertassini gets in for Zebre, and that was after Adam Hastings had gone to the bin. So now Zebre, they're back within touch of Glasgow. Glasgow then get their Hastings back onto the pitch, and he goes in for their bonus point try. And that was after Zebre had kind of first of all, they rode out a Simbin period for Carrera, but then he'd come back on, and then Krumov goes to the bin almost straight after as well. Zebre kind of find it difficult to keep 14 players on the field, but during that that third yellow card period for them in the game, Hastings goes in for the bonus point try for Glasgow, and you're thinking, okay, well, will Glasgow have it won now? But like 3 minutes later, Pani intercepts and just has the gas to go in from, just inside his own half. Over he goes, and Zebre then towards the end, looking to get that last chance to be able to maybe get a really famous win. They can't quite do it, but they've lost to Glasgow now. I think it's 26 or 27 of the games. They've played 26 or 27 games. They've lost them all, but this is probably the closest that they've run Glasgow. And you feel like if Zebre can keep performing like this, that it won't be too long before they break that duck. And also against other teams that haven't beaten yet either, at the Stadio Sergio Lanfranchi, they are hugely competitive now, and they're not kind of a gimme game anymore. Glasgow had absolute stars out there, and it was still difficult for them to break down. And I thought Glasgow as well, one thing they did well was it wasn't working for them, brilliantly in the backs, but the forwards turned up and said, right, well, we'll get it done. And, that's what they did. They got those first 3 tries out the gate, and that was enough in the end, for them to build on in that second half and get the win. So I think, Glasgow, they won't be enamored with the way that they played. There's certainly lots of work-ons for them, but for them, I think just getting that bonus point win was hugely important. For Zebre, it's they're at that point now where they needed to produce performances because they've been slipping down the table, and just get a bit more confidence back in the team. Yes, they didn't win the game, but they having performed this well against a team as good as Glasgow, who've been going so well recently as well, that's definitely going to give them the performance, I think, to start getting results in the next kind of few rounds of this competition. So Zebre Parma 21, Glasgow Warriors 26, the final score there. On to the final game of the weekend then, and it's Cardiff Rugby 17, Benetton 8. So this one kind of a low scoring affair, especially in the first half. We have a couple of penalties for Callum Sheedy, and those are kind of in the first 15 minutes or so, very close together, those two. Then Alex Mann goes to the bin for them, but Benetton can't produce anything, in that run up towards half time, and we end up at 6-0 at half time into the second half then, and the only try for Glasgow of the game, Josh McNally goes in about 10 minutes after half time. And then Glasgow just start trying to just build on that scoreboard and just make it difficult for Benetton to kind of produce anything back. I think by then, Rhino Smith had landed a penalty for them. So they're on the board, but they're still, well behind. So 20 minutes to go, then Callum Sheedy puts over a penalty. I think that made it 14-3 at that stage. Then Federico Ruzza gets in with 15 minutes to go for Benetton. So they're in with a try. They're back within 7 points. But rather than them being the ones kind of pushing to potentially get a score and a potential draw out of the game right to death, it is Cardiff who win a penalty, and Johan Lloyd lands that to make it 17-8 at the finish. So Cardiff Rugby 17, Benetton 8. And obviously we have the news as well that basically the owners of Ospreys are the preferred bidders for Cardiff Rugby. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. You would expect it's going to be sad news for Ospreys fans, unfortunately. When it comes down to, I think 2026, they're okay, but beyond, I don't know what year it is that they're going to reduce down to 3, but yeah, it's not looking good for Ospreys. I'm hoping it's hope that there is some chance for Cardiff to keep going, and be independent of the WRU rather than WRU owned, but also for Ospreys to still exist. And as well as that, like, not the cost, let's say, of Scarlets, so that they all four exist, but it's not looking too good, honestly, in that respect. But those are the results from the weekend. So let's have a look at the table. So given those results, Glasgow, that bonus point win, very important for them because it sent them to the top of the table. They've now got 8 wins from their 10 games and they sit on 39 match points. Stormers, a game in hand, in second place, 8 wins from their 9 games and they're on 36 points, but they've had that first defeat of the season, so or first defeat in the URC at least of the season, so a setback for them. Leinster continue moving up the table, 7 wins from their games, and they're on 35 points. Cardiff on the same number of points, but points difference, not as good. 7 wins from their 10 for 35 as well. Munster then, in 5th place, kind of, moving up and down in that kind of, that area at the minute, with that patchy form that they're going through at the minute, but 7 wins from 10 as well for them for 34. Ulster, that defeat to Scarlets, and they drop down to 6th place, 6 wins from their 9 games for 32 points. And then we have a bit of a gap down to 7th place. We have the Lions, 4 wins and a draw from their 9 games and 24 points for them. So, Ulster have a bit of a cushion, but they, you feel like they've definitely got to kind of get back on the horse now in the next couple of rounds, or that cushion will disappear pretty quickly because we've got some teams really moving up. Like we've got Ospreys next in 8th place, 3 wins, 2 draws from their 10 games on 21 points. The Bulls, that brilliant win at the weekend moves them up to 9th. 4 wins from their 9 games for 20 points. Benetton, 4 wins from their 10 games, after that defeat to Cardiff, for 19 points. Then the Sharks, beginning to make a bit of a move themselves as well. 3 wins and a draw from their 9 games, 19 points. Edinburgh dropping down to 12th. 3 wins from 9 from them for 18 points. Dragons in 13th place, 2 wins and a draw. They obviously picked up that, that bonus point there against Munster. They're on 17 points. Connacht, slipping down to 14th now, just 2 wins from 9 for them. They have been, though, picking up bonus points. They didn't get one, this weekend on 16. Scarlets, that brilliant, last ditch, like 4 minutes into injury time, Alex Mee score, getting them that win against Ulster. So now it's 3 wins from 9 from them, and they're up to 13 points, and it, lifts them off the bottom of the table. Zebre, who we're used to seeing being down in those bottom 2, slipping down now. 2 wins from their 10 games, but those 2 wins came the first 2 rounds of the competition. They came close against Glasgow. Couldn't get it done, but you got to give credit to Glasgow's defence on that too. But it feels like they're not too far away from a 3rd victory of the season. They had decent form in the Challenge Cup as well, and it feels like they're if they can produce a performance, another performance like that at home, there's a lot of teams that wouldn't have the ability that Glasgow do to get themselves over the line and get the win, and they might catch 1 or 2 of them. But Zebre bottom there on 12 points. So that's our table. We have a new leaders in Glasgow. They'll be hoping now that they can go on a run at the top of the table, and it won't be a case of popping up for 1 game and then in the next round dropping back down. They'll want to stay there, obviously until the end of the season, but certainly as long as they can up there, number 1, or if they're not number 1, they'll want to be number 2 as well, and just because we've seen Glasgow previously, being in that top spot and then towards the end of the season dropping off a little bit. They absolutely won't want to do that this season. And, for me, they've been going great guns. Stormers have been brilliant all the way through the season. Let's see how they respond now in the next round.